The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast. How you doing, Sam?
A yearly tradition like no other
Yeah.
is our first week of January episode titled The Sun Exploded Part X. This is our Return of the King, our Dune Messiah, if you will.
Yeah.
This episode. I'm good, by the way. I'm good. Thank you for asking. Let's set the table a little bit.
Yeah.
2 years ago,
Uh-huh.
first week of January, the Phoenix Suns fall to under 500. At the time of January 5th, 6th, something like that, they fell to 20-21. Devin Booker injured. Chris Paul goes down with injury. The team at a certain point is led by Dwayne Washington Jr. and Mikal Bridges, who had found a new offensive role on that team, and they were just, as we now of course, just a few weeks away from making a staggering, surprising mid-season blockbuster trade for Kevin Durant that would change their trajectory forever, quite a bit, over the past couple years. That was 2 years ago. That was the original Sun Exploded. That was the low point of our season 2 years ago. We released an episode about how bad they were.
It feels so quaint now in comparison.
The
problems we were complaining. They had picks. They had draft picks in that one.
Last year, the Sun Exploded Part 2. First week of January, the Phoenix Suns fall to 19-18, their low point. The Big Three. We were clinging to this designation, Big Three. There were no quotation marks around Big Three at that time. We were insisting that they were a Big Three. They could not stay healthy. No matter what they did, could not get games together. The team was 19-18, and we released an episode titled The Sun Exploded Part 2. Are they ever going to get it together? You know what's funny about it, Mike? Looking back, they kind of, I know they obviously got swept in the playoffs.
No, yeah.
They kind of did.
I remember, yeah.
They kind of did turn their season around.
They finished 7-3, right, in that gauntlet towards the end of the season.
So
the three games, of course, they lost by like 30 points each, but they still finished 7-3 and somehow made it to the 6th seed.
We released that episode when they were 19-18. They went 30-15 the rest of the way. That's a 55-win pace. They played like a good team. They got relatively healthy. You know, they still had a lot of issues. There were still a lot of...
They traded for Royce O'Neal, too.
A lot of Frank Vogel haters. They did trade for Royce O'Neal. But all things considered, in hindsight, again, feels rather quaint, rather small, setting the backstory. It was more about the world building, and now here we are. Like all good conclusions to all good trilogies. The Sun Exploded Part 3, January 2025, is going to be the biggest. It's going to be the most epic. It's going to be the most... It's going to change all of our lives for a very long time because... The time has come for some action. This feels like, by far, the worst position the Phoenix Suns organization has been in a long time, and is the most pessimistic I am about their future outlook that I can remember, possibly in my life.
Yep.
And I think we're going to spend the next hour or change, as we do every week, talking about what the sun exploding means to us and what the organization... tangibly can do about it in the next 4 weeks before the trade deadline. And then maybe also, even some stuff that some big questions that are going to need to be answered this summer. Right.
I think it does feel like every game they play now is a new low. Like genuinely, watching the Pacers game on playback, with our friend Kellen Olson was with us for a while there. And of course, somehow over 100 Suns fans joined to watch together on that one. And it's just, they just look like the first half, they didn't know what they were doing offensively. They stopped trying defensively halfway through the second half. They don't shoot threes anymore. Like they just stopped shooting threes. They were shooting one of the highest rates of any team in the first.
Yeah, I think
10 to 15 games.
I think they look like a team that they could know what to do, right? Because we've literally seen them shoot threes, set screens for each other, whatever in the past. More so, they look like a team that's checked out, that just doesn't
They've
care
lost
anymore.
faith and trust in each other. They're missing guys. Like, don't get me wrong. They're obviously missing. I mean, Royce O'Neal really is the main one in that game. Royce O'Neal has been one of the better players on the Suns so far this year and does do the things we're talking about, like shooting threes. That's all he really does so far this season offensively. But they just absolutely got demolished, and it felt like it was coming at a certain point where it's like, okay, this could be a blowout at any moment. They're shooting 15 less threes than the Pacers, and the Pacers are running down their throats. They can't stop them. There's nothing they can do. And just like any other game, they turned it over. They shot better than the other team somehow, but they lost the math battle by having less possessions and shooting less threes. That's going to be a recipe for a loss, like regularly for this team. The extent to which the first half was played like it was basketball in 2006 was insane, though. You know, like they were just getting to the free throw line and shooting mid-range jumpers over and over and over again in isolation and in post-ups.
What did Kellen say? He was audibly groaning on our stream. Shout out to Kellen. I apologize if I'm blowing up his spot. But just audibly groaning on each possession and just saying, "Meet me at the elbow, brother," every time, whether it was KD or Book or Monte Morris or whoever was taking another elbow midi. Just really, really bad process for a team that otherwise was shooting like literally 50, 40, 90 as a team and still losing. Yeah. And in the second half, another game where like they're down by 10 the entire time until like when it finally becomes a blowout. But like they're down by 10 most of the way, and you just have no confidence that they're coming back. You're like, yep, this is a loss. They're not coming back. No fight. There was a little bit of fight, of course, from the usual suspects. Josh Okogie saved a couple possessions. Ryan Dunn was a positive in the plus-minus column.
Somehow, yeah.
Where literally every other starter was like a minus 15 in the Pacers game, except for Ryan Dunn, who continues to be awesome. But overwhelmingly, they just played like a team that is checked out. And a team that knows, I would think, that something bigger is coming.
At the very least, they think they look like a team that's saying, why even try? You know, that's what it seems like to me. Why even try? What's the point of putting the extra effort? By the way, if it takes an extra effort to beat the Pacers, it's not that great of a season overall for a team that has traded their entire future for this current iteration of the team. And I think that's kind of where we are now. Now, we've sort of covered all potential possibilities for this team over the course of this season. Why? Well, because a lot of how this team has played has led the conversation to be more about changing the team than it has to be about how they're currently playing. So we've traded Grayson. We've traded Nurkic, right? We've made trades for Bradley Beal. We're going to talk about trades for other guys on this episode, but I think we should at least once again reset the table on why the potential for blowing up the team has been gaining steam for the Suns fan base so far in the last few weeks, because I think we've seen sort of a turning point where a switch has now flipped in the bad direction for the fan base, where there are more and more people just saying, I don't want to watch this anymore. Just get rid of it. Just blow it up. Give us a reason to think about the future. Than there were, a couple weeks ago when the team was still playing poorly, but like I said, new low every game. So now there's more and more of a reason.
I mean, there's a difference between a couple weeks. Look, I've kind of been in the camp for a while, but even I recognize that like a couple weeks ago they were still above 500. They were like the 8th seed, right? And you can always talk yourself kind of into being in competition for one of those spots and still kind of playing for something. They are now the 12th seed in the Western Conference, below the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
Basketball Reference gives them a 5% chance of making the playoffs as of today. Not the
making
play-in.
The playoffs.
Not the play-in. That's if they get into the play-in, winning the requisite games to make it into the top 8 seeds. 5% chance of even getting there. And then we're talking about, okay, they're the 8th seed. Let's go watch them get swept against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are so obviously like a better team in all respects.
Mm-hmm.
So at a certain point, people are just like, you can't salvage this, and it's not fun to watch, and it just depresses people, honestly, making them think about having to watch another 40 or 50 games of this.
And I think that I think the fear that a lot of Suns fans have, and I think it's a fair one to think about, is what does that do for Devin Booker? Does that piss him off? Does that mean losing Devin Booker? And that's a fair thing to think about. But I think we should at least cover, just from a objective perspective here, what they're looking at if they do not blow it up. That would be a team where Kevin Durant has 1 year left on his deal because they have not signed him to an extension. Meaning if you're trading him, you're trading him with the possibility, most likely, of only playing one playoffs with whatever team is interested in trading for him. Meaning not a ton of leverage with a Kevin Durant deal going forward. Bradley Beal still continues to have his no-trade clause. There doesn't seem to be a lot of teams that are interested in trading for him. And even if there were, he still has to be interested in them. So if they play it out, they're in a situation with very little leverage on KD, which is the player that has the most trade value, I think, as far as the only current player that's playing actually pretty well on this team. And if you want to have salvage something for this team for the future, you have to do that. And I want to factor in something that I talked about a few weeks ago. Maybe people have missed it. Maybe people are checking in on this one because it's a tradition now. But Brian Windhorst mentioned the concept of, he tied the idea of a Kevin Durant extension to the Jimmy Butler trade. And if Jimmy Butler is not traded to the Suns, there's no extension for KD. What does that mean for KD? If there's no extension for KD, that ostensibly means he does not want to be in Phoenix. That means that you might have to trade him anyway in this upcoming offseason.
Well, so and at this point, like,
why would he? Right?
Why would he want to stay in Phoenix? And by the way, people, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of blame to go around for what's wrong with the team, and Kevin Durant, in my eyes, does not escape that blame. In fact, honestly, my view of Kevin Durant's legacy has soured so much in the past 24 hours. That's a different conversation. We don't have to talk about it. But Kevin Durant has largely been very good this season. He's the best player on the roster by a mile right now, the way he's playing, because of the down season that Devin because of that down season that Devin Booker is having. Kevin Durant is by far the best team on the roster. And he's on a 15-18 team, and maybe he wants to win another ring, and it's not going to happen here. So it seems plausible that Kevin Durant could coordinate through his agent or whatever back dealings, or, that there could be other places around the league where it's not just the Suns like abandoning Kevin Durant and sending him off to some place. There could be plenty of near contending or contending teams interested in Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
And where the feeling would be mutual.
Yeah. And I think there would be more in the offseason, but if they even consider blowing it up now because maybe they're not making a trade that would make him happy, or the team's just not good enough and they want to recoup more assets now, then there would be less options, but there might be more value to his contract if they do trade him now. Now, the other side of that, well, two parts of it, and I think they go together. There's Devin Booker and what happens with him, and then two, the Suns don't own any of their picks, and even the picks that they do own have swaps built into them, so they're going to be the worst of three potential teams that have access to those picks. So if they do trade Kevin Durant, should they be bad? And if they are bad, why? Unless they're getting some of their own picks back, doesn't really benefit them for being bad. They still have Devin Booker signed. If you want to recoup assets, the most assets you could potentially get as far as draft capital would obviously be trading Devin Booker. Devin Booker signed for a long time beyond this season. There's 4 years left on his contract. So for me, you don't have to necessarily rush into trading Devin Booker. You have the ability of, if you get there, right? I don't want people to think I'm trying to ship out their favorite player right now on this podcast, but I mean, this is a world where the decisions that were made previously on this team could lead you there, whether you want to do it or not. So that's a conversation that we're going to have at some point. So if you do end up getting there, obviously you can't trade him. You don't have to rush to that right now because, look, it doesn't really benefit the Suns to just trade for a bunch of terrible players and then just be bad.
Yeah.
Because they don't have picks that they actually benefit from that, in any case, except for trading with Houston and getting those picks back.
I think what everyone is afraid of with, kind of a post KD world where Book is still on the team is basically becoming the Dame Blazers, where you're trying to like ostensibly build around Book, but you're not really doing it, and you're just kind of like still not a playoff team for a couple years. I understand that that's a distinct possibility. I think the first thing is you sit down Book, and he's a reasonable guy, and you have a conversation, an adult conversation with him to find out what he wants. Because I think there's, he values his place in Phoenix. I think he really likes being in Phoenix. He values what he means to the fan base and what he means, like his place in franchise history. And I think there's a world where you could sit down, Book, and say, hey, we want to retool around you for a couple years and try and give it a go and see, like not necessarily do the full rebuild where we get 12 first-round picks or whatever. There's a world where he's cool with that, and maybe you try that. There's also a world where he says, get me the fuck out of here right now.
Well, if
and
Booker
then
was still on
you
the
have
team,
to listen to him.
if you're Matt Ishbia, right, and you're saying we're trading Kevin Durant and we're going to go to Devin Booker and we want him to stay, you have to tell him that you have a plan to try to be good next season or soon. Like you have to tell him and convince him of that plan. And I think that's something that, actually probably would be something that he would want to do because, if you're Matt Ishbia, because, the idea of having Devin Booker for a few more years is that obviously he's having a down season this year. I know some Suns fans are souring on him in general. I don't think that's a huge portion of the fan base. I personally think he could play a lot better than he is going forward. This season has been a disaster.
He just
all
needs
around.
to get off the weed and he'll be fine. That's a joke for the record, but I had to slip one in there.
There's obviously something there that's not stopping him from playing the way he is. I don't think that's indicative of how he's going to play for the rest of his career. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not there yet. I think he could be fine going forward. And if you want to build a team around that, maybe you can find a way to do it. I think you've learned a lot about what that team potentially has to be, and maybe don't put him next to another player that loves to shoot mid-range. Maybe only have one of those guys on a team. Although Chris Paul did too, but it's a little different in that he creates so much offense for other people at the rim and from the three-point line that maybe you need something more like that. So I think it's important for us to just say it's not an ideal situation to say that you have to blow up the team right now. To say the
least.
We all know that. Like, we all understand that. It's not even... And I don't even think that saying that Kevin Durant is the first one on the trading block means that this is any responsibility of him. Now, like you said, I think there's some level of responsibility there, and I think with Devin Booker too, and I think Bradley Beal to some extent, although I think Bradley Beal was just put in a position to fail on this team in general because of how poor of a fit it is, which I think, we didn't realize how bad it would be on this podcast at first. It's clear to me that the front office, or at least the ownership group, probably didn't realize how poor of a fit it would be. But we all know now it's not currently working in this current iteration. And I think you can say injuries have been a massive problem with this team this year. Yes, but when they all play together, all the data points to that not being very good.
Yeah, they're actually worse with all three of them together than with just
one of them missing.
Well, and especially with just Book and KD, they can still string together some positive minutes. With all three of them, they're just bad. They're just bad. Look, here's the thing. I think we need to get into some tangible trades, but I have a big question that I think everyone is going to want us to address before we get there, which speaks to why people feel a little bit trapped right now. Because, yes, on the one hand, if they just blow it up 2 weeks from now, they have the most guys under contract. They can maybe recoup the most assets that way, whatever. On the other hand, though, Mike, you do need to address the question, well, is James Jones your guy going forward, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a huge decision that you need to make. If you're pressing the big red button and you're setting up the future of the franchise for the next 7, 8, 9 years, you don't want those decisions to be made by a guy who maybe you fire 6 months from now because he doesn't take the draft seriously and decides that he's not interested in a rebuild, right? So that's a conversation that Matt Ishbia needs to be taking seriously right now before anything is done, right?
I think that it's really tough for me to have this conversation because to me, if you watch any clips of what the Suns' decision making has looked like, and they've released some like of the draft room, it's pretty clear that the hierarchy of command starts with Matt Ishbia, as it should for most NBA teams. But this is a different scenario where he played basketball. Like, he clearly thinks he has an understanding of what it makes to be a basketball team. And look, James Jones, I'm not saying he's perfect. I think he's made a lot of mistakes. He also built the team that went to the NBA Finals for this Suns team, and he's still that guy in some respects. And I think it's no coincidence that when Matt Ishbia got here, that's when the Kevin Durant trade happened, and that's what put the Suns in the position where they have no assets to potentially improve going forward. That to me is tied directly to Matt Ishbia. Having said that, if we're in a predicament, if we're in a scenario where James Jones, even if he does have good ideas or whatever, his voice is not being heard, it's kind of like the situation that we were in with Frank Vogel last year, right? Where if he's just in there and his voice is not being heard, Matt Ishbia is overriding it. Bartelstein's there too. Bartelstein technically above James Jones, by the way, in the current org chart for the Phoenix Suns. Just have to point that out.
Yeah, but has a lot more kind of financial say in that side of things, I think, than the day-to-day
I'm not so sure about
operations.
that. I don't know, man. I just don't know.
You're right. We don't know because we're not sitting in on those discussions. It would just be bizarre to me if that were actually the case.
There are times where there are job titles that make it pretty clear that you're there for managing the stadium, the arena, the money, ticket sales and stuff like that. His is not. His is over basketball operations as well. So that's just something that happens with teams sometimes. His is over basketball operations. So having said all that, I think the question always boils down to, as it does with coaches, as it does with players, who else would be available that could potentially do a better job? If there's somebody that is available that could potentially do a better job, this is a position for the Suns, by the way, that has no salary cap. Right? Meaning if Matt Ishbia said, I want this person, he could pay them as much as he wants and potentially recruit them to the Phoenix Suns. I don't know who that would be.
Well, it's a little different with GMs. Look, I do think there's a certain value that a guy like James Jones brings over, say, the Ryan McDonough tenure, which was disastrous, where it's just a random nerd like us sitting in that position. But, because James Jones has actually played basketball, can connect with the players on that personal level. That being said, there's all sorts of rising GM talent all the time. Like free agent GMs it's just different. Like you don't need to be good at basketball to be a good GM.
It's true.
You just need to take, and this has kind of been, the overwhelming issue with James Jones' tenure as a GM. I think largely, yes, he gets a lot of credit for building a championship team. He gets a lot of credit just for one thing and one thing alone, which is the Chris Paul trade. That was a brilliant trade that changed the trajectory of the team massively. And yet I'm also always going to think of him as the guy who trades a first-round pick for Landry Shamet. And the guy
he also traded for Cam Johnson.
And the guy who took Jalen Smith 30 picks higher than anyone would have. And the guy who traded for Torrey Craig twice when he didn't have to. And it's like,
if you focus on only the bad picks for any GM, I think they're going to look like that, though.
No, I know. I know.
Are there any general managers where you can't do that with, that are available for the Suns to hire?
But Mike, obviously every general manager has made bad moves. What makes James's a little bit different is just the sheer carelessness with which he's used assets in the past. And what we need going forward, we're asset strapped. We've got nothing. We got nothing in the pot going forward. We've got a pick in 2031 that we might be utilizing in some of the trades today in our conversation. And so whoever is in that seat next has to really fucking care about those decisions going forward of like min-maxing, optimizing those kinds of deals where like he has to go in with kind of this cutthroat mindset of I'm going to screw some other GMs out of these like second round picks or, these deals on the margins. I'm going to make savvy moves for a couple of years so that we can build back up an actual core of homegrown players. And look, I like what they did in the draft this year. I really like Dunn and Oso. I would love to know to what extent that was James, because if that was James, then I think he did a great job with that. And maybe he actually is interested in the draft, and maybe he is the guy for the next 5 or 10 years. I just don't know. And I'm just urging a little bit of caution because if you're going to make big moves right now, then you need to know that he's your guy.
All I'll say is I think it's one of those situations where I don't think it's as simple as he just needs to be fired and then it's going to work. The only time the Suns have had really great culture outside of the Steve Nash era since I've been a fan was from the decisions that James Jones made for this team. And that was a combination of Monty Williams, Cam Johnson, Chris Paul, and all those things that he did within that season. And it set up the culture for what the team was over the best run that they've had, particularly, of course, since we started this podcast, but really since the Steve Nash era in general. And if we're talking about what this team is missing right now, if you're diagnosing the problems at its core, it's a culture where everyone is held responsible and the players continue to play well. And that includes finding the right players. That includes finding the right coaches. And I'm not even pointing fingers at Bud, although I think if you're just looking at how the team has been playing and you're pointing fingers at anyone, Bud would still be a problem in there. It's not like it's been coached perfectly over the last few games. But the culture itself, the actual core of this organization, has rotted since they got rid of some of these people. And all I'm saying is, if that's their main focus, if that's what they want to do, and that was the focus of James Jones when he was hired, and he made it clear that that was his focus, getting rid of a guy and starting over and continue to getting rid of people and starting over every single time that the team plays poorly, which is something that you can do.
Yeah,
that does not set up a culture for success.
That's fine. I understand the importance of culture. I do also think culture can be used as kind of like this annoying misnomer where like that's how you end up with the Miami Heat in a situation right now where they're suspending Jimmy Butler for 7 games and then they're playing in their Heat culture court the next day, right? But that's fine. I understand Jones takes culture seriously, and I think it's important to take culture seriously. I also hope he's just learning from his mistakes with team building a little bit and the various iterations of this team, and understands maybe why some of these teams have failed in the past beyond just we tried to aggregate a bunch of stars that don't fit together. Case in point, you want to have like upstanding young gentlemen who are good in the locker room. That's fine. Maybe don't trade all your first round picks for like upstanding young gentlemen who are 6'4" and can't dunk, in the next version of the team. And that's another example where I think maybe they're self-correcting by drafting guys like Ryan Dunn and Oso. But throughout Jones's entire tenure, it's been like, how many oversized guards who aren't actually wings? How many skilled white big men who can't catch a lob? How many of these types of players can I put on the same roster? And just, they're so smart. They know basketball, so they'll figure it out. It's like, all right.
Although I agree with you, I agree with you, but I also think like a lot of those things we're talking about, why couldn't they get a player that was worth more money than that in that position in some ways? And we don't have to get into that right now, but like a backup center position, like somebody like Frank Kaminsky or something like that. Yes, it would be better if they had an athletic center that could catch lobs and dunk and also play defense, but those are going to cost more than Frank Kaminsky. So the calculus was a little bit different in those types of decisions.
Could have drafted one.
What led to those? And and they did now, right? I mean, hopefully in Oso Ighodaro, we'll see how long he ends up being on the team. But let's actually make some fake trades. And by the way, I don't care if you're listening to this and you're not used to this already. Fake trades are not meant to be entirely realistic. In some ways, we're hoping that they are. Of course, we're trying not to be completely outrageous. We're not trading Bradley Beal for players to teams that he definitely wouldn't want to go to.
I'd like to think like that we don't deal in like specific engagement bait, right? That like that's not our purpose here. We're not posting this on YouTube or TikTok and trying to get a million views on. I don't
post fake trades on Twitter in general. I just know better than that. And second part of that is that I'm not even necessarily saying that all of these are something that I would want to do. So I put together a bunch of trades just as examples of what could potentially work. I focused on Kevin Durant to try to find teams where maybe he would actually want to play and teams that would actually want him to be on their team. So that was my main focus in making fake Kevin Durant trades. Now, I know you didn't necessarily make a bunch of fake trades for him particularly, but you had more of a conversation around trades that you wanted to get to, right?
Yeah, I wanted to cover the rest of the guys because I think there's a way. I think we need to have two conversations at the same time. One is your Kevin Durant idea. Like, what would the market for Kevin Durant look like right now? I think that's a very worthy.
To me, this topic. Is the first. When you hit the blow up button, this is what it means. You trade KD first.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
But I think so. Yeah, I just think we should also, and I totally understand your point about it's not meant to be 100% realistic, but bringing the pragmatic side a little bit more into it, we should note that unless KD wants to leave, he's not going anywhere, and there's a 95% chance that. Even a 99% chance, I would say, that this doesn't actually happen in the next few weeks. It happens in the summer. And so some of my trades, most of my trades, to be honest, are dealing with that second question, which I think we should address at some point, which is, okay, if Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are going to be here until minimum summer 2025, what can you do in the next 4 weeks to dip your toes into it, right? Start setting yourself up for whatever the next era of
they're going to be bad.
Is. Yeah.
Can you do something to at least give you flexibility
give yourself a little bit more salary flexibility. Give yourself.
I like that. I didn't do that.
A draft pick in the upcoming draft, right? Somehow.
Let's
just little things like that.
Let's go through my KD stuff first. I'll just go through it all. and then we'll get to what you have. Just to leave it all together, because it's not going to be a long conversation. Well, we'll see. Who knows? Because I'll tell you, I want to go through my thought process with this more than anything else, because I find it to be very difficult. The challenges that the Suns have in making trades for Kevin Durant, of course, is the second apron. They can't take back more than they're sending out. They can't combine his salary with anyone else. His salary is over $50 million. It's a lot. But you also have to get teams to make up that salary. Now, the first one's pretty simple because it's one that was talked about in the summer, and it's to Houston. So getting KD to Houston. Now, the thing about getting KD to Houston, I do think that Ime in particular wants this kind of, he wants a star that's a go-to scorer, because I think his thought process, his belief is, from what we've heard and some of the reporting that's out there, they need a go-to scorer in the playoffs if they want to be successful in the playoffs. If they don't have that, they can be a good team, but they won't have the type of playoff success that he wants. He wants to win a championship. So we know that they're looking for that kind of thing. I do think what they're willing to trade for KD is going to be different now than it was in the offseason, because half a season is gone.
Yeah, sure.
And honestly, he's, I think he could play better than he has so far this season. He's still been good, but he was better last season than he has been so far this season. So a different player, half a year older, less of a season, 2 potential playoffs on his contract. He could still sign an extension if he's traded to another team, so there's still advantages there. So I didn't include Şengün in this, just from the perspective of trying to be as realistic as possible.
Yeah. Now, this time last year, when we did make a couple KD trades on the pod, we did include Şengün.
Because Windhorst said he would potentially be available.
Yeah, I'm just saying that would have been awesome.
Yeah,
it's not possible anymore.
Looking at the team now, it's like, wow, he would be really good on this team. So I did Fred VanVleet, Tari Eason, and Cam Whitmore.
Would love it. Love it.
Plus the 2026 Suns pick. And I only put one pick in there because I don't think they're going to be saying, okay, we're going to give you all your picks back. But I do think you have to at least put one pick in there for Kevin Durant. And it gives you Fred VanVleet, who can, honestly, the Suns won't be terrible if they keep Fred VanVleet and Devin Booker together. That's a pretty good backcourt. They could potentially put something together to make a run next year if you're trying to convince Devin Booker to be here, right? They have a point guard. If you lose Tyus, which you probably will, in the offseason, you have Fred VanVleet signed in the future, whatever. Then you have a young player in Tari Eason who's awesome and would be really good next to Devin Booker, and a defender,
and Ryan
athletic,
Dunn,
strong.
and Oso, and he's a phenomenal defender already. He's 23 years old.
And then Cam Whitmore, a young potential future scorer that has like some level of scoring star potential, but not necessarily, probably not high level all-star, but some scoring potential for him. But I also said, okay, 2026 Suns pick. Okay, so I'm saying, you say, okay, you can only give us one pick, but on a separate trade, as part of this, you also have to take Nurkic for Steven Adams. That was my okay, fine, you only give us one first round pick.
Okay.
But you got to take Nurkic
for
Steven
legal?
Adams.
Is it legal?
Yeah, it is.
To do 2 separate trades with the same team on the same day like that? Are we sure?
It happens. Yeah, it is.
Okay. All right. I'll believe you, but I'm just not sure.
I don't think you can get Amen Thompson. For those who are listening to this, you probably say, I want him. Jabari, I don't know if you want somebody like that, but the easiest way to get to the right salary is Fred VanVleet, Tari Eason, Cam Whitmore.
Yeah, so this was actually going to be my main question for you is, do we think Houston is going to give up VanVleet, who's by far their biggest contract, so easily?
I think they have to.
I think they have to.
It's the only way to do it.
There's a way they could do it without him, but now it's like, okay, forget your Nurkic thing for a second, although I think that's really funny.
Yeah. Steven Adams is expiring. That's why
Steven Adams is expiring, and he's $12 million. They could do.
He's probably better than Nurkic right now, too.
They could do, instead of VanVleet, they could do Dylan Brooks plus Steven Adams plus, and keep in mind at this point, the Suns might need to waive 1 or 2 guys, or you might need to turn it into a 3-team trade where a guy goes somewhere. Yeah. But like if it was Dylan Brooks plus Steven Adams, Reed Shepherd is on a rookie deal, and because he was drafted so high, he makes $10 million. He's also
can't even play on that team.
He can't even play on that team. So I just wanted to pose that too, because like, what if you could get Reed Shepherd? That would be interesting. You know, it's like, okay, you don't want to give us Fred VanVleet, but you got to make up the salary somehow. So give us Reed Shepherd, Tari Eason, and Cam Whitmore, and a pick, basically.
I think, I mean, I think it's still something where you have some young players in a pick where you could potentially be good, and you try to get the 2026 pick in case, honestly, truthfully, in case you have to trade Devin Booker next year. right? Because then you have your pick. You can just suck and then try and get a high pick in 2026.
Bradley Beal, tank commander for a season.
Right, exactly.
But
So you
quite
try
possibly.
to get a pick that's soon in order to have a high pick in a future draft. Eason would be awesome. At the very least, you have something there. I think you could actually have kind of a fun team coached by Budenholzer next year if Devin Booker stays. If you have Eason and VanVleet. It's kind of cool.
At the very least, I think you're looking at, like, honestly, Eason has been really, really good this year, guys. Like, one of the top versatile defenders in the league and just, like, a key X factor in Houston's success. I think, honestly, there's a chance that, like right now, we're a 35-win team with no vibes. And so it's like, would you rather be a scrappy 35-win team with your own pick in 2026 or a 35-win all-in team with no vibes? That's kind
100%.
of like some of these
and
trades.
a player that will get better as they get older. Yeah,
I know Kevin Durant is so good, but some of these trades, it's honestly just like, are we getting that much worse? Like wins and losses.
I mean, the
wise,
problem
we're
is still
already
Beal,
really
which-
bad. So like, what's
of course
what's
we
the
could
floor?
talk about the Beal problem later, but whatever.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. Give me more. More
Okay, so
KD ideas.
I'm only going to mention this. I'm not saying it worked, but I looked at the Clippers because I thought, could the Clippers want to? They're good right now. One, Kawhi Leonard's back, and they have James Harden, somebody we know Kevin Durant gets along with. Could they want Kevin Durant to pair with Kawhi Leonard? So I tried this, and I'm saying it's not going to work, and I'm saying they wouldn't do it during this current season, but maybe it's something that could be done in the offseason if KD stays. But what it takes to get to Kevin Durant's salary is a combination of Norm Powell, Zubac, Terrence Mann, and Chris Dunn, or some small contract like Chris Dunn. So you get Norm Powell, Zubac, Mann, and Dunn.
So is that not?
And then if they have any future first-round picks, which they do, of course you try to get at least one or two at that point, yeah.
It's just funny to me because what's kind of made, like, the Clippers have all this depth this year, and Norm Powell has been so good, just like weirdly so good.
It's not good for the Suns in that it gives them no young players to look forward to growing in the future.
Oh yeah.
But it does give them players that could play right now and are, like scrappy and defensive. The reason they're good is like those four players, honestly.
Well, can I be honest? The reason I think the Clippers don't do it is it's because it's swapping what's made the Clippers successful this year, which is their depth of veterans.
100%.
That, by the way, both of us thought they would be terrible before the season, so we were wrong.
Just thought they wouldn't be able to score, and then Powell is having
them
a great season.
getting rid of all that and saying we want to become what we just were with Paul George and Kawhi again.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't think they do it.
I
Because
think
if
you're
they wanted to
probably
do
right,
that, they
but
could
I
have
also
just,
think
they could have
there's a
just
chance
re-signed
that-
Paul George if they wanted that.
Yeah, but I also think there's a chance. The thing about Paul George versus Kevin Durant is that Kevin Durant's a lot better. He's just a lot better. They would be a really good team with those three players if they found a way to fill out the depth around them. It's just, I don't know, that teams are going to want to do that thing where they have three stars making $50+ million in the future. Although Kawhi Leonard's on that team for a few more years, he signed an extension. Like, it's not the worst idea to say, let's get Kevin Durant for a few of those Kawhi Leonard years, just in case it lines up where they're all healthy. That could be our year to win a championship. It's just not the worst idea for them. Hard to fill out a roster, as we know, with depth. Miami Heat. So, of course, they have Jimmy Butler, and they're trying to trade Jimmy Butler. It seems like a disaster. I just put them on there just from the perspective of, if Jimmy Butler really wants to play with Kevin Durant, and supposedly Gambo said that the Suns are number one on his list of teams that he wants to play with, and that's because of Kevin Durant, like we know. And Booker, too, of course. Like, Booker's obviously attracted a lot of star talent to Phoenix over his career. But it's clear Kevin Durant's part of that, so I put them on there just to see. They have 2 tradable first-round picks. It would be something like Duncan Robinson and Terry Rozier and 2 firsts. But you could potentially get 2 firsts from them if they're trying to find a way to convince Jimmy Butler to stay. And then they have a team that has Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant, Tyler Hero, and Bam Adebayo. It's pretty nasty, to be honest. That's a pretty good team.
I would like, because a little underrated thing about Miami, first of all, they have 2 first-round picks to trade.
Yes, according to what I was looking at in this trade machines, right? I'm just relying on them to be right.
Okay. I'm trying to get one of Kel'el Ware, Jaime Jaquez, Nikola Jovic.
Really hard to make that legal.
They have a few. Okay, so you're telling me you already tried, because they have a few guys there.
Jaquez. I was trying to get Jaquez.
They have a few guys there who have produced a little bit in the NBA now. I don't know if any of them have star potential, but I think all of them have starter potential, and they're all on rookie deals. And having one of those guys would make me a lot more likely to say yes.
There's always a possibility of something like that happening in the offseason as well. Just going to point that out. I think the combination, if they could find a way to have Hero, Butler, KD, and Bam, it's a pretty awesome team. Not saying that they would. You want a fun one?
Yeah.
Orlando Magic.
I like the Orlando Magic as they are. Do we want to
Well, I don't think you'll hate this. I don't think we'll ruin them with this trade, to be honest, because
Okay.
I'm talking KCP, Cole Anthony, and Anthony Black.
KCP, Cole Anthony, Anthony Black. Can I have like 6 first-round picks? Because that's
I
not
put
very
4.
appealing to me.
I put 4. I really put 4 because I'm like, look, it's not good for the Suns, right? Anthony Black, the only young player with potential there.
Yeah, let's be honest.
KCP can play now. Cole Anthony can play now. Cole Anthony's been really good this year, actually. But you need, that's exactly right. You need a 4-pick return for that. But that team could win a championship like this year, honestly.
The
Like,
Magic,
they'd be really good.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah,
I think
if they were fully healthy altogether,
that
Jalen
would be
Suggs has to be
a
healthy.
Suns team where if now I have to watch Cole Anthony, KCP, and Anthony Black, like don't get me wrong, I want picks for sure, but like the ideal KD trade has a little bit of both. It has a couple of role players who I think are better than that, and a couple of picks. And that one is more heavily towards the spectrum of just picks. And I think rooting for those basketball players, not because I think they're bad guys or anything, I just think that it would be a very bad product on the court. I'll be honest.
I put that on there mostly because I think that Orlando team would be fun.
That Orlando team would be good.
They'd be really huge, first of all. Like, they could play massive lineups with, all of the big, gigantic, versatile players, the way Paolo, KD, and Franz are. And then they have Suggs to be that perimeter defensive player. One more. Warriors. Draymond Green.
Didn't Kuminga just get hurt yesterday? What happened to him?
I didn't even put him in the trade.
Okay, all right.
Draymond Green, Bajemski, and Gary Payton the second. This is salary at this point. Plus whatever first-round picks they have. The trade machine I was looking at said they could trade 3. And I don't know if that's actually true or not. And I'm not even saying they would trade Draymond Green. If you're somebody who likes the Warriors,
the third guy?
they would never trade
Who
Draymond
did you
Green.
say after Podziemski?
Gary Payton the third, and I put Lindy Waters in there because you need a minimum to get up to the. It's 4 guys.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a no for me, dog. And the reason I just hate Draymond Green, I can't do it. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
also, Podziemski is bad. He's not good. I don't think there's enough here. I don't think there's enough.
I agree with you. Although I think those 3 first-round picks could be really interesting because the Warriors just vacillate between being awful and good every other year. It seems like. So you just like those actually could be good picks. Other side of that, if you're going to keep Devin Booker for a few more years, Draymond Green's. It seems like Draymond Green might be the kind of leader, that Devin Booker needs.
Don't let it happen. No.
You know who else is an asshole that everyone hated before he was on the Suns?
Chris Paul.
Yeah.
There's a world of difference in terms of the basketball ability of those two guys at this stages of like Chris Paul when he was on the Thunder being traded to the Suns versus now 35-year-old Draymond Green on the Warriors. I don't know.
I actually think he could be helpful for the culture of the Suns, and that's the depths of despair that we're currently.
That's
in.
crazy, man. He fucking punched out his own teammate. What do you mean he'd be helpful for the culture? You think they need a little bit of that? Is that what you're saying? You want to see? You want to see Oso Ighodaro get knocked out for no reason in practice? Because that's what would happen.
Because Oso Ighodaro is not like Poole. Like. All I'm saying
Draymond is a
maybe Poole deserved it a little
mentally ill individual. It doesn't matter when you're dealing with someone like that. It doesn't matter if you deserved it or not. He's just gonna go apeshit on someone at some point, and someone's gonna get clocked when they don't deserve it. I'm sorry.
I don't think that's true.
No, I will not have.
It would have happened more than that if it didn't matter how the people acted.
It might have happened more than that, and they might have just put it under wraps as an organization.
That's a good point. I'm not saying
the video had to be leaked,
but I do think
the video had to be internally leaked. Remember, for anyone to see it.
Yeah, and then they were mad at the leaker more than Draymond. I do wonder, at the very least, if the Warriors would do that. Just from the perspective of would they do that? I don't know. I actually don't know. Probably not. I think they value Draymond Green enough to say we only want KD if it would be
for free,
not Draymond.
Yeah, they could
Kuminga, Pods, whatever, like
Kuminga and Wiggins or something.
The guys that they've been shopping around it, Wiggins, Kuminga, yeah. But I tried to give them a trade where they could keep Wiggins and Kuminga and still have some wing flexibility to make it as realistic as possible, and just put KD in that Draymond Green spot. And I think they'd be really good. I think they could potentially win a championship this year. And the Suns could potentially get 3 picks out of it. Is all I was doing. This is just a note that I had at the bottom of this. Would you trade Bradley Beal for Michael Porter Jr.?
Jesus, how many years?
A few.
How many years are left on Porter's deal?
A few, I believe. 2, maybe. Yeah.
Isn't that the same number of years
I think
as
so.
are left
I
on
think so.
Beal's deal?
Yeah, I think so.
I might do that.
Just a thought.
I might do that.
I don't think the Nuggets want Beal.
Don't
you know
think
what I
the
mean?
Nuggets need him.
But I do
Yeah.
think that Beal would probably be interested in playing for the Nuggets. Do you know what I mean? Like that's where I was at. I was like, is there a world where I looked up the worst contracts in the NBA?
Where he's at in his career, he needs like a transcendent star to make things so easy for him in order to look good, I think. Because him just initiating at this point is not it, no matter what he does. So yeah, Jokic would make it easy for him.
Just a thought.
He could just be a
Putting
second
it out
side
there.
attack guy whenever they double Jokic, swing to Beal on the wing, attack the closeout. He could excel
Doing
in that
the
role
stuff
easily.
that Jamal Murray is supposed to do but can't
Yeah.
do anymore. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
he
right,
could do
let's
that for
talk
sure.
about what you wanted to talk about as far as other guys on this team.
I
know
want
you
to talk
have some
about
fake
dipping the
stuff.
toe rather than blowing it
What's-
up. Well, first of all,
Can I just say what's your favorite of all those?
yeah, no,
It's gotta be
that's-
the Houston
That's
one,
where I
right?
was going to go.
Yeah.
I'm going to rank them. Houston number 1.
Okay.
That's I don't even remember who you said anymore.
Van Vliet, Eason, and Whitmore.
Yeah,
plus
easily
one pick.
number 1.
The
Easily
Suns
number 1 because
pick.
Van Vliet can still play. Like Van Vliet and Booker is still a reasonable backcourt next year, and you get 2 guys who I think 2 young guys who could be good. One is already good. Tari Eason's already
You
good.
still have a Bradley Beal problem, but that's a future thing.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Mhm.
And you get 2 picks or a pick back, whatever you said.
At least one. Yeah, that's what I had.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I just don't know if they do it. Miami, number 2, maybe? If you can get
Okay.
one of those younger guys that I was talking about, then definitely
maybe,
Miami.
Yeah, maybe. You can't. I mean, salary wise, it becomes really.
Okay.
It's just a salary thing.
I'll tinker with that one a
both
little
both teams are hard capped. So yeah.
Yeah. What were the other ones? The Golden State.
Clippers, which is not realistic. Orlando and Golden State.
Who was in the Orlando deal? It was KCP.
KCP, Cole Anthony, Anthony Black. One young player, 2
And 4
players
picks.
that-
I think
4
that
picks,
one,
yeah.
just by sheer volume of the picks, that one goes 3rd. But I'm not like thrilled about it. And then probably Clippers, and then probably Warriors.
That team's going to be good for years, I think, too. Orlando. Those picks are not great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
fun. Okay. Let's talk about some role players.
Okay.
Because let's just be honest now. This is the section of the pod where we admit that KD's probably not going anywhere in the next 3 weeks. Unless, if KD says in the next 3 weeks, fuck this, send me somewhere where I can win. Totally different conversation. We'll address that
Not
when
gonna-
we have to.
Yeah, not going to say that's impossible. I'm leaving that on the table as a possibility.
Yeah.
Windhorse is in the back of my mind.
In all likelihood, you're dealing with going into the summer of 2025. You've got KD under contract for 1 year, and you're going to get whatever assets you can get out of a guy who only has 1 year on his deal. Then you talk to Booker and say, hey, you in or you out. Either he says he's in and you do your best, or he says he's out and you do your best to accommodate either way. So that's what I think it's probably going to look like. That doesn't mean that you just chill for the next 40 games. I think there's all sorts of stuff they could do for the next 40 games. Tyus Jones. If it doesn't make a difference, like if we're not going to make the playoffs anyway, and I feel a little bad about having this conversation because I do think Tyus Jones, first of all, I think he's a great locker room guy. I would feel bad about forcing him to move places for 6 months until he's a free agent again. But maybe he could go audition somewhere else and line up a good contract for him somewhere else. And most importantly, I think Tyus Jones has actual value. Do you agree with that proposition? Even as an expiring contract, I think you can get something out of a guy like Tyus Jones at the
I'm
deadline.
not. I don't think you can get like a first round pick or anything. But
I don't think you can get a first round pick either. How about this? Team that struggles with turnovers, the Atlanta Hawks. Now, granted, they've done the multi-point guard thing in the past. Tyus would not start for the Atlanta Hawks because Trae Young exists. But they're one of the worst teams in the NBA in ball security. And Trae Young turns it over like 5 times a game, and they don't have a backup point guard. They don't have a real backup point guard. So I think that this could be a team that, also is pretty good already. Not great, but like they're only a couple games out of being like a 4th or 5th seed in the East. This is definitely a team that could talk themselves into needing a little boost.
I see it. Jalen Johnson catches lobs. Like, that would be a pretty good combination of guys to play together, actually.
So
Tyus and Jalen.
Tyus Jones to Atlanta for Muhammad Gay, who is a second-round minimum contract that just matches salary. He
makes the trade work.
Makes the trade work. 4 second-round picks? You think we could work that?
No, I don't think they'd give 4 second-round picks for a half a season. Yeah.
4 second-round... Well, it's happened in the past with, like, Jay Crowder. 4 second-round picks. Here are the second-round picks. Hear me out. Because Atlanta has a lot... They have a bunch of second-round picks. 4 second-round picks for the next 4 drafts. Minnesota this year. Memphis next year. Clippers the year after that. Houston the year after that. 4 playoff teams, basically. Second-round picks in the next 4 years.
That's interesting.
For a half-season rental of Tyus Jones. At the very least, you're guaranteeing that you get to select a prospect in the 2025 NBA draft, which is sort of my goal here. I'm trying to set them up for like the long-term future too, obviously, but I'm also just trying to like give them something to work with this summer where you can like it might be baby steps, but if that's all you have to work with, you got to take those baby steps. That means trading Tyus for a couple second-round picks, so be it. I would start by asking for 4. Maybe you only get 2 or 3.
Right.
I think it'd be worth a look. Grayson Allen. You think you could get a first-round pick out of Grayson Allen if you trade him right now? He's had a really weird season.
Yes,
I think he's the guy you could get a first-round pick out of.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's by any means a guarantee, and I say that kind of because of what...
I think you might be able to get one for Royce, too. I'm sure you're going to get to that next. But
I'm going to get to that next. I think... Given that Dennis Schroeder did not command a first-round pick, I question still if Grayson could get a first-round pick, but I really want to believe he's just had a down season. The obvious team here, you already mentioned them for KD, but Orlando. Orlando needs shooters. They're like a good team.
KCP's been bad for,
KCP's been bad. They're a good team.
Not bad, but they're not what they expected.
They're bottom 5 in the NBA in three-point percentage.
Yeah.
Grayson Allen for Cole Anthony and Denver's first-round pick this year. Not even Orlando's first-round pick. Denver's first-round pick.
That's pretty good.
Cole Anthony has 1 more year under contract. He doesn't play a lot for Orlando right now. He plays like 15 minutes, but
he's been really important now that they're injured, but becomes a lot less important when they're healthy.
Yeah, I think Grayson would play more if they're healthy than Cole.
Yeah.
I think Cole Anthony is also not a guy to be excited by coming to the Suns exactly, but he'd have 1 more year under contract. I think he's watchable. I think he's arguably even tradable if he plays well enough next year. And most importantly, again, my goal is getting a pick this year. Get me another prospect kind of on the same timeline of Ryan Dunn and Oso, so we can kind of start rolling this into a little bit of, a little bit more youth, a little bit more positive momentum. Arguably even guys who we think could succeed alongside Booker even potentially if things work out well enough and you're trying to retool around Booker for a year or two. So get another guy who's going to be drafted in the 20s this year because Denver is good this year, but they're also not going to win 60 games. Like that might be like the 22nd pick or something,
right? Which
would be really solid.
I dig it.
Houston,
it's realistic. It's possible. Yeah.
Another option, Houston, Grayson for Jock Landale and Houston's first round pick this year. This is another team that I think, they could talk. They're also like bottom 6, bottom 7 in 3-point percentage. I don't know how much they need Grayson, but I think they could talk themselves into it, like just needing another wing piece that can actually make threes.
That's interesting.
And Jock doesn't really play for them.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, Suns need him. Yeah.
Would Jock Landale be our best center right now?
He might be. Yeah. Actually, I think he would be. I think that's I think he would be.
I think he'd just be an afterthought in that trade. And it's funny. I did just criticize James Jones like 15 minutes ago for trading for Torrey Craig twice. And now here I am. I'm like, go get Jock Landale again. But
should have kept him.
More so
we talked about it at the time. We wanted them to keep him.
It's more so about the pick. I don't know if it matters to Matt Ishbia also like getting out of the second apron. I don't know if this would get them out of the second apron, but for what it's worth, the trade is legal and Jock makes like $6 million less than Grayson. That might be relevant down the line too. Yeah, just another thing you throw around. Okay.
It doesn't hurt for Houston if they're trying to find a star later to have a little bit more salary to move in a trade too.
Royce O'Neal, I don't actually have trades for him. And the reason I didn't build out trades for him is because I absolutely agree with your assessment, which is that if they wanted to trade Royce O'Neal, they could clearly get a first-round pick for him right now. I think it's obvious.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
I think that's interesting because I do think Dorian Finney-Smith is supposedly not going to get a first-round pick. So, but I think there's a chance, he's signed for 4 years or for 3 years after
Royce.
Next year,
anyone who dives into the data knows that Royce has played the most positive minutes of any player on the Suns all season. That all the lineups work when Royce plays and they don't work when Brad plays. Maybe that's as much Brad's fault as it is to Royce's
it's a fit
credit.
thing. It's a fit
Right.
thing, yeah.
Per 36 minutes, he's averaging like career highs and everything. Granted, he is 31 years old. And the other thing about a Royce trade that I will say, this is kind of why I don't want to trade him right now. He's under contract for 3 more years. And so he's an example of a guy. I think you could trade Tyus. I think you should trade Tyus right now because you're not going to get to keep him anyway. And I think you should trade Grayson right now because he's not having a very good season. And regardless, like if you can get a first-round pick, that's not a guy who's going to swing the win-loss record all that much either way. Royce, to me, is a little bit different because I think you can take Royce into next season. He's got a few more years on his deal, so it's not like he's going to be an expiring contract. You can take Royce into next season with Book still on the team and with a bunch of other role players that you've acquired from whatever other trades you've made, and still say to Book, hey, we're trying to compete. We're trying to make the playoffs. And Royce would be one of the guys who helps you in doing that. So to me, the value of just getting the 22nd pick right now for Grayson Allen, to me, that's a no-brainer. Getting the 22nd pick right now for Royce O'Neal, I think we could actually still use Royce for another year or two, and maybe we get that pick later on.
Right. I understand that. Yeah, because I think he still has value. The market for picks is kind of bad right now. I think maybe it's just the type of thing where teams are saying, we'll give up a first if it's like a star or if it's Cam Johnson, but we're not doing it if it's just a role player right now. And yeah, holding on to him is not the worst idea to see if that fluctuates or changes a bit after teams get knocked out of the playoffs, because that's when they become a little bit more desperate. That's the issue with trading anyone right now in general, is Houston is feeling themselves, even OKC, if they just get knocked out earlier than they anticipate or something like that happens with them, then all of a sudden they got 50 first-round picks. Maybe one of it or two of them are more available than they were before that.
That's definitely true. Yeah. There is also though the play-in tournament, and we've talked about the impact of the play-in tournament before, in that it convinces, except for maybe the Suns this year, if they do decide to sell, it convinces everyone to think that they're buyers, not sellers, and maybe creates a seller's market. I'd like to see a little bit more research about like if that's actually the case, but I do think that's how we've seen, to get, again, quote the Jay Crowder trade from a couple seasons ago, Milwaukee giving up like 4 second-round picks for Jay. I don't know, maybe you can't get a first-round pick, but I would think that there's a proper environment come 24 hours before the February deadline where there's just so many more buyers than sellers that you can find someone. Royce O'Neal fits on any team in the league. It's not difficult to come up with destinations where he would fit. He would play anywhere.
I agree with that.
I like to believe you could get a first round
the Lakers
pick
or something like that. Yeah.
if you really wanted it. But again, I would keep him for at least through the summer, and that's the case where just personally I reevaluate this one at 6 months. Yusuf Nurkic, real quick.
Yes.
I want to ask you about the premise. So I just gave you a couple examples. Say you can get a first-round pick for Grayson Allen this year or in the next year or between Grayson and Tyus, like you've acquired like a first-round pick and 3 second-round picks or something, right? If you can do that, so this is presupposing a couple of things. It's sort of an if-then statement. If you can get those picks for Grayson and Nurkic, does that make you more willing to, because we know Nurkic has no value on his own. Like if you try and just trade Nurkic by himself, you're not going to get anything. Nobody wants him. But if some other team comes to you and says, hey, we'll take Nurkic off your hands for the 2031 pick, unprotected, and you've gotten a pick in return for Grayson, are you more willing to be receptive to that just to get off his deal this February?
If you're trying to keep Devin Booker, then I think you do that. You consider it.
Here's an example.
Yeah.
You go to Detroit, a team that's now actually pretty decent. Jalen Duren's still their starting center. He's still going to be their starting center all season long. But they have that beef stew extension that they just signed him to, even though he's only their backup center, only plays like 15, 20 minutes a game. And I don't think he's a great player, but I think he's a solid player. I think he's an upgrade over Nurkic. Nurkic and 2031 for beef stew. And let's say like Detroit has a ton. I checked. They have a ton of second round picks, not just their own, but from other random teams. Like let's say you could get a couple random second round picks in like 2028, 2030, like something that's not obviously not as valuable as an unprotected 2031 first, but something that like makes you feel that sting a little bit less. And the more important thing is that you're just getting off Nurkic. You're bringing in a guy who is 23 years old, who has played some positive basketball minutes in his career, and maybe he can become better. You're getting more athletic. Do you think that there's potential there for both sides to do that?
I don't know. That's kind of interesting. I do think there's the teams that have cap space that are willing to take stuff on in order to get assets. Like I think of the Brooklyn Nets or the Washington Wizards as the teams that could potentially do that. So Detroit's not first on my mind because they might actually be trying to be good next year, and having Nurkic's money on their team next year is a little harder. But yeah,
but that's a good point. I mean, I still would like to believe part of the reason I chose the Pistons is because if it was any team where he had to be the starter, I would say that it's not possible because everyone knows. Like the jury's out.
The Wizards have some of the Suns' second round picks. Maybe you can get them. Maybe you take Valanciunas back, you give them Nurkic, they eat the cap, you give them a first for it, and they give you back 2 seconds.
I would consider doing that. Yeah. So basically, you swap Nurk for Valanciunas, and then your pick is just getting worse 5 years from now because you're swapping a first round pick for a couple seconds or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But in the interim, it would definitely make your center. Is Valanciunas an expiring deal? That's the only thing on that one that's a little weird. He's not.
I don't think so.
He's another year.
Well, maybe he is actually. I'm not, but he makes $10 million, so it's a lot less. It's like he makes backup center money. So if he becomes your backup center in the future, like that actually makes sense.
What would Brooklyn? Because you mentioned Brooklyn, that's the other interesting one. What would they be willing to give up?
Yeah, well, we could have got Dorian Finney-Smith probably in that case, but it's a little too late for that.
Day'Ron Sharpe still doesn't play. Do you want to pay?
So
Day'Ron
Valanciunas
Sharpe
is signed for 2 more seasons, $10 million each, basically.
Okay, 2 more seasons, $10 million each.
Day'Ron Sharpe, I haven't watched enough to know if he's any good. Brooklyn's salaries are so weird. You know, like
Zaire. Okay, how about this? Nurkic because we can take back. This is the entire reason we have an open roster spot right now, theoretically, to do something like this. Nurkic for Zaire Williams and Day'Ron Sharpe. Both guys are in their 4th season on a team option at the end of the season. So both guys, you go into the summer and you basically get to decide if, they get to try out for 30 games, and then you decide if you want to pay them anything or not. And I think there's a chance you would want to keep those guys. There's also a chance you wouldn't want to. So it would be kind of interesting. But you're getting off Nurkic. I think Day'Ron Sharpe is better than Nurkic right now, to be quite fair.
Don't hate it. Yeah, I don't hate it. They've been bad enough to make it worthwhile to even have a conversation about. So, The
point is, I just wanted to throw around a couple ideas. Unfortunately, so the guy also, I couldn't come up with a Beal trade. That's just like a 1-to-1 team.
So hard, man.
Couldn't come up with it.
Because I looked at Ben Simmons and I'm like, there's no way. I don't know. Maybe there is a way, but why would he go there? Because Ben Simmons is expiring.
But part of me,
it's $40 million expiring. Would you put the 2031 pick with Bradley Beal just to get off of him and get somebody like Ben Simmons? But why would he go to Brooklyn? I just don't see a world where he would want to.
To pull up the aggregate of all that we've been talking about, like the post KD portion of this episode, like the last 15, 20 minutes. Part of me just wonders, you keep KD until the summer. You keep Book, obviously. Brad, let's say you can't move him. But if at the deadline you lose Tyus, Grayson, and Nurk, let's say you get a way to get Nurk off. If you lose Tyus, Grayson, and Nurk, you bring in Cole Anthony, Valanciunas, and like a net positive of 3 or 4 picks. A couple of them maybe a first round pick and a few second, maybe more than that. Maybe like 4 or 5 second round picks would be possible. I don't know. I think you're kind of vibing the second half of the season. You know what I mean? Like obviously,
well, you can still be bad. You'll still be bad, but it won't be as depressing.
I think you'll still be on pace for a 36-win season. But honestly, if you got Valanciunas or depending on Day'Ron Sharpe, depending on who the center is, you would have some feel-good moments that Nurkic can't even provide. And obviously, you're not going to be a good
Cole
team.
Anthony scoring 30 off the bench would be fun occasionally.
You would have a first-round pick this June to look forward to, and a few more picks, like a few more net second-round picks in the next 5 years to look forward to. And I think you could maybe talk yourself into, okay, we're chilling until June, and it's not going to be the most fun season of all time, but we're not going to be unwatchable. And then we'll have difficult conversations with the adults, James Jones and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. We'll sit them all down in June and kind of feel it out. But I think that would at least put you in a position where you can say, okay, we did something. We hear you. We're addressing your concerns.
And we don't judge. Yeah.
We listen and we don't judge. We we're putting them on the right path. We're not going to fix everything in 24 hours. but we're trying. That would be better than nothing. I mean, if they do nothing this February, I'm going to go crazy. I don't think there's any way that's possible.
I don't know what we're going to talk about on this podcast.
Yeah.
We're running out of things to say. We've traded everyone on the team. But yeah, I mean, I'm with it. I just think something has to be done about this team. In some ways, I would even be okay with another apology letter to the fan base. That's how bad. Hot dogs should be free this point.
They should.
Just give away hot dogs. Free hot dogs at Celery Stick Arena. Just do it right now. But yeah, because it's just a bad spot for Suns fans. And look, if you're listening to this saying, wow, that was a depressing episode. Yeah. If they give us something to be positive about, I promise we will cover it positively. But for now, they're giving us nothing, and therefore we're going to talk about them the way they deserve to be talked about. That's where we're at with this team. You got anything else before we go, Sam?
No, I don't think so. We've got a back-to-back coming up next 2 nights.
Back-to-back.
At Philly, at Charlotte. Do you want to do either of those on playback?
The road. I don't think I can.
Do we dare? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Well, we'll hope for the best, I guess, in the next couple days, and then we'll catch you guys midweek, as usual.
Appreciate everyone for listening. We'll be back soon.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.